Hey, this is a weird question on my mind, but it's about competition, healthy competition. But what I'm thinking about is, like if you're going to be in a race with somebody, do you want your competition to be equipped with, the best of the best that you have, the best food, the best knowledge, the best training, the best shoes, the best everything? Um, or do you want to try and, you know, get that edge? And I don't have an answer, so that's why I'm throwing this out there. I want to just share some perspective and why I'm bringing this up. So I'm bringing this up from a business perspective, right? Like, we have companies that compete, but you also have like protections and, and patents and, trade secrets and all this. And while it sounds great, part of my mind says, yeah, but that is then information that's being like, that's, we're depriving that information that is already known, from the rest of the world. And, yeah, I guess if you were to give it away, then like, what is your moat, right? But I say this because like, maybe that's been the world of, scarcity and maybe that's been the rules. Maybe the rules have to change. Maybe they should change. Maybe they shouldn't change. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, I'm thinking about this because like, how is the best way to accelerate abundance for all? And, when we hold on to things and we don't tell other people, like to me, I don't know, it seems like, well, it creates like, how do I say this? Like, I don't know if inefficiency is the word, but it's like, you can, as a business, you can still operate, even if you're not the best, but you can operate because you have an advantage, like a knowledge gap, or because you have like a skill gap, or you have something that your competitors don't. But healthy competition, sometimes when there is none of that, like you really are like, you have to work every single day to try and stay, at the forefront and try and stay relevant. And as a result, that sort of competition, really does seem to provide like fast, quick, great, sometimes results. Maybe not always, right? I mean, maybe, oh, there's that tree again. Maybe it's, I think, obviously, I think what we're learning is, you want to do this in a safe manner as well, right? In a responsible manner. Well, anyways, I want to share just kind of a personal story about, I used to be in competitive running. And, it's interesting. I've always kind of said this to myself is, when I think back to like some of my best races, and I won a lot of races, I lost a lot of races, but I always think of like, what comes to my mind is, like one race in particular, is at like a New York State cross country meet, and I came in second. And, and I say this because why is that my best race? Well, you didn't win, right? Because I felt like I gave it my very best and it still just wasn't good enough. But, like, have you ever been like in a competition where they, do you ever like let somebody win, just so they could feel, whatever? And, I'm not saying this, I'm not judging and saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying, to illustrate this. But, are they really, if it's not like true competition, if we're not really like, really forced to give it our best and just to see where it lands, not only maybe in sports, but maybe in business or elsewhere, then will we truly know our limits? Will we truly know what we are capable of? And, and I think about this in like, in business standpoint or for society as a whole, like, I do think that capitalism currently, it does produce some really good results when competition is allowed to flourish, because that's what, sparks innovation. It provides incentives. And when you have other things like regulation or, or different market structures, like, like a monopoly or even an oligopoly, it's harder to, it's harder to get good things out there. And I mean, even in business, I mean, sometimes you see like, good things are there, and sometimes these companies, because they have the resources, they can just go buy out their competitors. Now, I mean, maybe it's good for that company, but is it really good for society? Is it good for, the people, the customers, and the people that we want to serve? Because sometimes you can just buy it, and then you just put that thing on a shelf, maybe because, it doesn't go with your, with your profit model. So, but I don't know. I guess I'm thinking about this because, like, what if, and I don't even know, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, I'm just speaking out loud here, but what if there was a different model? Like, what if, like, we all really did treat everybody as on the same team, right? And the team gets better when everybody gets, pushed to their best. And, I think I just like to extrapolate that, like, like, you want people to be their best because it can be, not only is it like a better, like it's a better, say, sporting event to go watch when the teams are, giving it their best. Like, I don't want to just go and they're like, just playing like 75% or 50% of, it's like, well, but I know they can do better, right? But they're holding back. And so anyways, I throw it out there because, I wonder if we are possibly holding ourselves back from, from really making an impact and helping solve some of these problems, around the world because of, I mean, listen, and it wouldn't be easy because I can imagine, like, I mean, this is more just a thought experiment, but like, if you really did, then what would be your incentive to research or development? What would be your, your incentive to do, like, if you didn't have a moat, then, so, listen, I'm not saying that this is, I'm morally just, or not morally, I'm more saying this to, think about the idea of what if it was possible. Like, what if we didn't need to make money, and what if, like, we really just let, like, the best of the best survive, and what if we really did care about others, and we really did, treat every human as being on the same team, regardless of, who's the best or who's winning. What kind of results, would we get? I'm sure, it seems like it would probably cause, like, a lot of, like, disruption though, right? Like, because, like, the safety and the security and the things that you bank on, I mean, they could be here today and gone tomorrow. And, that could probably be pretty unnerving, even if it's not the best. Like, even if it's not the best and there's way better things that could be happening, are we slowing that progress down? I don't know. What are your thoughts? That's just a thought. It's more just a fun one. I mean, maybe it's easier to apply to sports, because in sports, I mean, I've always believed, like, I've always been very, very competitive, from like a young age, maybe too competitive. But I've always, I hope that it's good competition, healthy competition. But I really wanted my competitors to, to be the best, because I thought that would make me the best. And if my best just wasn't good enough to, to compete or to win that day, then hey, try harder, right? Work harder. But I guess the consequences, in a sporting event or something like that are, okay, like, it's pretty low, and there's not a lot of disruption, and depending on how you look at it, maybe, like, for me, I don't know. I mean, yeah, would I love to win? Sure, but it wasn't really the end of the world. I just feel like if you know that you gave it your best, then I feel like that's all that matters. What I liked about this, sport of running is a lot of times we would talk about like PRs or PBs, personal records or personal best. So in many ways, if you had that mindset that you were really just competing against yourself and your previous self to see if your future self could do better, a lot of ways that you would actually improve your personal best and your personal record is when you were in races with the best of the best, right? When you were actually pushed, when you were forced to see what you had in you, to see what you had in left in the tank. So, you know, I just share it out there. I have no idea what this means for business, or if that's even like practical, or even a good thing. I like, you know, just probably not. But I thought that it was an interesting thing to think about. So, anyways, what do y'all think? You know, feel free to, you know, put your comments. You can, you know, tell me it's a silly idea. You can tell me, you know, yeah, maybe, you know, it's a good idea. I don't know. It doesn't, you know, but this is more just a fun video. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful day out. The sun is shining, and yeah, I love nature. There's that tree again. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Peace.